Shalom everyone, welcome to another vlog by Danny the Digger, and this time I am completing my quest after the sites relating to Gethsemane. Yes, right in front of us we can see the spectacular 1920s church designed by Berluzzi to mark the Rock of Agony, a church known as the Church of All Nations in the Garden of Gethsemane. The Garden of Gethsemane and the church have been reviewed in my last chapter, but it's not the whole story. There is another site within the complex of the Garden of Gethsemane which is pretty significant, and especially from an archaeological point of view. Okay, we are east of the old city of Jerusalem. This is the Kidron Valley descending from the Jerusalem mountains all the way down to the Dead Sea. Right there you can see the Golden Gate, or the Gate of Mercy, the place said to be when Messiah one day will come, and one can see the top of the Dome of the Rock, the holy Muslim shrine, peeping over the eastern wall. Of course, this is also the location where 2,000 years ago the Jewish temple stood in full glory. But we are here seeking for another component in the Garden of Gethsemane that provides very interesting evidence to validate this site. First of all, what do we know geographically? What do the Gospel tell us about Gethsemane? Well, for one thing, the name Gethsemane literally means Gethsemane, which is an olive press facility. And I'm reminding you, we are at the foothill of Mount of Olives. It is expected that there will be an olive press at the foot of Mount of Olives. After all, producing olive oil was big money back in ancient times. Not so much for seasoning your salad as a source of energy, as a source of light, so people could find their way in the dark. And this region is just right, together with Greece and southern Italy, to grow olives. So the Holy Land was actually kind of the Saudis, the energy source providers of ancient times. But I'm here on a different quest. I am looking for the specific olive press that is labeled today as Grotto Gethsemani, the Cave of Gethsemani, the place said to be where the disciples and Jesus sheltered after the Last Supper. The New Testament tells us that all of these events are happening towards Easter, when Jesus and the disciples are in town, and after that long evening of 4 cups of wine and unleavened bread, what Jews call the Seder night, they decide to just cross the valley and take shelter in an olive press. And one might wonder, how can you be using an industrial area to spend the night? Isn't it like a busy place? Well, for one thing, it's night, and also it's not the season of processing olive oil. Olives are harvested in the autumn and are processed in the months of October, November, maybe September, not in the spring. So when Jesus and the disciples are here, the place is empty, and no one is questioning them. No one is disturbed by the fact that they are using a cave that is also the place of an olive press. And archaeology has proven that olive presses can be in the open field, can be in a building, and can also be in caves. This is clearly a cave. Bedrock is above our heads, although here one can see plaster and decorations. Also graffiti, I see. But the decorations, they go back to the time of the Crusaders, attesting to the fact that this place has been worshipped since the Byzantine period and also in the Crusader times to mark. And perhaps this is why there are stars decorating the ceiling, to mark the night in which they decide to spend the night inside this cave. some of these images are more recent, but some of them go back, dating 800 years old. They go back to the time of the Crusaders. In fact, there's one here, even bearing an inscription. You see it? And now let's go back to the text. The text tells us that they went into the olive press, into Gethsemane, and they are all tired, but Jesus tells them, stay awake with me, and I wish to redraw and pray by myself. And the text tells us that he goes a stone throw away. And the Garden of Gethsemane, where we started this vlog, is indeed about a stone throw away. There he addresses God, and we have discussed that topic in the previous chapter. But when he returns, despite his request of the followers to stay awake, how does he find them? Beneath the altar you can see Peter sound asleep, as well as all the others. He is upset. Why aren't you with me? Susine hic et vigilate mecum. Here is that statement in the Latin version, as this is maintained today by the Catholic Church. Okay, so this small size, humble location is marking the place where the disciples fell asleep, betraying Jesus' wish, and in return he delivered a message that is followed to this day. Stay awake with me. Stay awake with me, literally, okay, or spiritually is a better term. But let me now mount the camera and also make use of something I just discovered recently, tracking mode. You see, it is actually tracking my face now. And I want to conclude this short review with one interesting question. How do we know that this was an olive press? Is there any archaeological evidence to support this? Well, there is some plain white mosaic floor and what appears to be a cistern there in the back. I'll show it to you soon. But actually there are no components of an olive press that we can tell today. Olive presses would have big stones used as weights and big round stones to be used for crushing the olives before before squeezing them and turning them into olive oil. So there's none of that. However, we do have 5th century visitors coming to this site attesting to the fact that they could see remains of this olive press, although they were not aware of it. We have one pilgrim called Theodosius who comes here in the early 6th century and tells us when coming to this cave that he could still see the 4 round, flat stone beds on which the disciples fell asleep. Do you understand? Without realizing, he actually documented the components of the olive press that were still visible here. So where are they? One hint is provided by the visitor that comes about 60 years later. His name is Antoninus from Placantia, or that's his nickname. And he tells us he could still see the 3 flat, round stone beds. What do we learn from this? That in the process between one visit to another, one of those components of the olive press has already been gone away. Okay? And perhaps later on, other pilgrims or even churches took the other flat, round stone beds, meaning other components of the olive press, so we don't have it anymore. But this little testimony, in my opinion as an archaeologist, is pretty significant, providing the final, I don't know if to use the word proof, that's maybe too strong, but a very strong argument in favor of the assumption, of the belief that this is where the disciples fell asleep. This is the site of Gethsemane, and therefore at the Garden of Gethsemane is where Jesus is captured by the priests and taken back to the city to be interrogated by the high priest, and the sequence of events that will lead eventually to his crucifixion will begin. Okay, so I hope, and of course, if you want to watch the following chapters of the sites of the interrogation of Jesus, the site of the trial, the site where he walked, the site of the crucifixion, stay tuned because this is going to be reviewed, in the following chapters. And of course, if you want to be notified, then make sure to hit subscribe and hit like because good stuff is still yet to come. Be taught.